Troubling headlines have been cropping up across Asia. Some patients in China, Japan and South Korea who were diagnosed with COVID-19 and seemingly recovered have been readmitted to the hospital after testing positive for the virus again. Because SARS-CoV-2, the novel coronavirus that causes COVID-19, was only discovered a few months ago, scientists are still trying to answer many big questions related to the virus and the disease it causes. Among them is whether patients can be reinfected by the virus after they seem to recover from the symptoms. With other coronavirus strains, experts say the antibodies that patients produce during infection give them immunity to the specific virus for months or even years, but researchers are still figuring out if and how that works with COVID-19. The answer has huge implications for the spread of the disease, since researchers believe it will continue to crash across the world in waves, hitting the same country multiple times. Can you get reinfected after recovering from COVID-19? There remains a lot of uncertainty, but experts Time spoke with say that it's likely the reports of patients who seemed to have recovered but then tested positive again were not examples of reinfection, but were cases where lingering infection was not detected by tests for a period of time. Experts say the body's antibody response, triggered by the onset of a virus, means it is unlikely that patients who have recovered from COVID-19 can get reinfected so soon after contracting the virus. Antibodies are normally produced in a patient's body around 7 to 10 days after the initial onset of a virus, says Vineet Manashri, a virologist at the University of Texas Medical Branch. Instead, testing positive after recovery could just mean the tests resulted in a false negative and that the patient is still infected. It may be because of the quality of the specimen that they took and may be because the test was not so sensitive, explains David Wei, a respiratory medicine expert at the Chinese University of Hong Kong who also studied the 2002-2003 outbreak of severe acute respiratory syndrome (SARS), which is caused by a coronavirus in the same family as SARS-CoV-2. A positive test after recovery could also be detecting the residual viral RNA that has remained in the body, but not in high enough amounts to cause disease, says Manashri. Viral RNA can last a long time even after the actual virus has been stopped. Where have patients tested positive for COVID-19 after seeming to have recovered? A study on recovered COVID-19 patients in the southern Chinese city of Shenzhen found that 38 out of 262, or almost 15% of the patients, tested positive after they were discharged. They were confirmed via PCR polymerase chain reaction tests, currently the gold standard for coronavirus testing. The study has yet to be peer-reviewed, but offers some early insight into the potential for reinfection. The 38 patients were mostly young, below the age of 14, and displayed mild symptoms during their period of infection. The patients generally were not symptomatic at the time of their second positive test. In Wuhan, China, where the pandemic began, researchers looked at a case study of 4 medical workers who had 3 consecutive positive PCR tests after having seemingly recovered. Similar to the study in Shenzhen, the patients were asymptomatic and their family members were not infected. Outside of China, at least 2 such cases have also been reported in Japan, including 1 Diamond Princess cruise passenger, and 1 case was reported in South Korea. All 3 of them reportedly showed symptoms of infection after an initial recovery, and then retested as positive. Does recovering from COVID-19 make you immune? There hasn't been enough time to research COVID-19 in order to determine whether patients who recover from COVID-19 are immune to the disease, and if so, how long the immunity will last. However, preliminary studies provide some clues. For example, one study conducted by Chinese researchers, which has not yet been peer-reviewed, found that antibodies in rhesus monkeys kept primates that had recovered from COVID-19 from becoming infected again upon exposure to the virus. In the absence of more information, researchers have been looking at what is known about other members of the coronavirus family. We are only 3.5 months into the pandemic, Xu Li Yang, an associate professor and infectious disease expert at the National University of Singapore, says. The comments we're making are based on previous knowledge of other human coronavirus and SARS. But whether they extrapolate across COVID-19, we're not so sure at present. One study conducted by Taiwanese researchers found that survivors of the SARS outbreak in 2003 had antibodies that lasted for up to 3 years, suggesting immunity. Wei notes that survivors of Middle East Respiratory Syndrome (MERS), which is also caused by a virus related to the one that causes COVID-19, were found to last just around a year. Manashri estimates that COVID-19 antibodies will remain in a patient's system for 2 to 3 years, based on what's known about other coronaviruses, but he says it's too early to know for certain. The degree of immunity could also differ from person to person depending on the strength of the patient's antibody response. Younger, healthier people will likely generate a more robust antibody response, giving them more protection against the virus in future. We would expect that if you have antibodies that neutralize the virus, you will have immunity, Manashri says. How long the antibodies last is still in question.